Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to be here, and I can already say that it has been a wonderful day of different great presentations we've already been seeing. So thank you so much. So as mentioned, I'm Merit. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Single.earth. And what we do is we make nature the new gold. And also, as mentioned, we are a tech company. So our solution, as you can hear, will be about technology, using that to save the world. But a little bit about where it all comes from. So me and my co-founder, about 2 years ago, we looked around us and we saw a lot of intensive forestry happening in our home country, Estonia. So we basically tried to understand where is it coming from, and is there anything that we can do to make it stop? And we started digging into the problem to understand what is causing this type of intensive forestry. And we realized that it's actually the business models. So today, the only way for a landowner to earn money from their natural resources is by selling raw material. And if we want to see a change happen, we need to build new business models that would incentivize not the destruction of nature, but the protection of it. And as we started looking deeper and deeper into the issue, we of course realized that it's not just Estonia and it's not just forestry. It's actually all kinds of land use all over the world that is based on intensive land use. That is driven there by the business models that today only monetize nature as raw material. But nature clearly is so much more than that. So as we've heard today, like there's carbon sequestration, there's carbon storage, there's biodiversity, there's numerous ecosystem services that we use on a daily basis, or we make use of them, even if we don't understand that, then but we haven't been paying for this type of services. And now we see that these type of services are under a big threat because of that. So we started solving this problem and building these alternative business models to incentivize nature protection. But we also realized that although we are like these tech people coming from Pipe Trial and building the Estonian e-government, it's not going to be one particular app that is somehow miraculously going to save the world. So it's not about just one single app. It's actually big paradigm shifts that we need to create to be able to save the world. And as we do it, we integrate nature protection into the economy. Because this is the underlying reason why we see so much nature destruction happening. The economy is growing while the nature is decreasing, because there is no link between those two worlds, and nature protection is currently still based pretty much mostly on charity, and we want to change that. We want to make the economy start supporting the protection of nature. And here's how we do it. So we condensed it down into 3 things that we need to achieve. And first of all, we need to make nature the new gold. So we basically looked at gold, which is also a raw material, but we understood that, well, humans have been able to assign additional value to it. So we don't value gold for only its raw material properties, but for something more. Then why can't we do the same with nature? So we set out to create this new type of an asset class out of intact nature to make it tradable and liquid as any other asset class. Then point 2 that we need to create is that once we start turning nature into digital goods, we need to understand how much of this ecological value or the ecosystem services value that we want to monetize there is on this in this planet. And this is when we understood that there isn't actually enough knowledge, or this very easily usable knowledge about this available. So we started building a digital twin of the world's nature. Basically, everything that nature does in the physical world, we represent in the digital world. And based on that, we can start creating these digital goods. And this digital twin tracks carbon sequestration, carbon storage, but also biodiversity, and eventually other ecosystem services as well. And once we have been able to turn this into digital goods and make these digital goods tradable, we also need to make sure that the nature conservation markets are accessible fairly to all parties, especially to different landowners, because as we know, then the land ownership is very fragmented and very different in different parts of the world. So we put a lot of effort into making sure that we don't do any harm to any landowners with our business models, but rather do the opposite. So try to make it equally accessible for everybody and make sure that the price that everybody receives from nature protection is also equal and fair across the world. And here's how it works. So we tokenize nature for its ecological value by combining satellite data, big data analysis, and machine learning to build global carbon and biodiversity and other ecosystem services models. And this is the source data for us to basically create these tokens. The tokens represent 100 kilograms of CO2 captured in biodiverse nature. And these tokens can be sold. So we issue these tokens to landowners, and they can sell it to first of all companies that want to compensate for the footprint, but also other players in the market who want to, for example, use this as an investment instrument. So it's also tradable in our ecosystem. But when I looked at the different players that we have here at this conference, I thought I'd use this opportunity to highlight some of the challenges that we see in the market, and then especially those challenges that we see that we probably need to tackle together, because it's not just one company that can solve these problems. I think these are the main three topics that we need to tackle as a global community. And the first point that I'd like to point out is the conflict between focusing on carbon and climate goals versus biodiversity, because we've already seen that some of the carbon offset projects, nature-based carbon solutions, are very good for the climate, but then again have quite a negative influence on the biodiversity. So, for example, if a carbon offset project could potentially start from cutting down a forest and replanting a new one to sequester more carbon and create more carbon credits, then this is actually not good for the planet. And this is why we need to tackle carbon and biodiversity goals together. And this is one of the challenges that we are also tackling. Then the second point that I see that we need to tackle as a global community is scaling the carbon, biodiversity, and other natural climate solutions markets in a fair manner, because we need to make sure that all the landowners and all the participants in the market have fair access and get a fair amount of value out of this, regardless of whether they are a developed country or a developing country. And then the third part is something we've encountered a lot as well, is that, yes, we are using also this innovative blockchain technology, but this can actually become an issue when you're talking to some of the financial institutions, especially like these more traditional financial institutions, because there's a stigma around blockchain technology, which is coming from some of the money laundering and other negative things that are happening in this space, but don't actually are actually a separate problem from the blockchain technology itself. So I think what we can do as a force together is remove the stigma around blockchain technology and highlight the benefits in terms of transparency and trust that it can bring to the market. And coming back to Single Earth as a team, so we're a diverse team of more than 15 people already. So we have people coming from different tech companies, but also from different universities. So we have quite a big science team with us already. And I, as mentioned before, come from Pipedrive, and Andres comes from building different other tech companies, and including the state tech solutions. And we are proudly backed by Equity Ventures, Icebreaker, and two founders of Pipedrive, Ragnar Seiss and Martin Henk. And we hope that you will join the revolution at Single Earth as an investor, as a landowner, or as a researcher. We're also hiring, so please join us in whichever way you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Merit. We will take the merit out of your work, I guess, in a few years. And this is the only company who says, we are going to save the world. We're not going to make a small product. No, we are going to save the world. We need to be having ambitious targets. Thank you, Merit.